challenge that women and girls face around the world is not an easy topic to talk about, but we really think it is the moral challenge of this century.
These problems exist because we've created them, so it's up to us to fix them. The way that Nick and Cheryl use stories to break through the indifference that still exists when you talk about women and girls is exactly the right way to go about it.
We understand the story, always. This is how people get engaged.
Nick and I wanted to galvanize people into action because we know it takes a world to bring about this change. We're utilizing every tool and platform available to get the message across.
The following organizations and groups are developed to help give opportunities for women. This presentation is on the global oppression of women. This is not reverse sexism, and helping women does not imply that men are ignored. This initiative has the potential to service both men and women for future generations. Keep in mind that during my research I've found that though men are routinely cruel to women, it is often women who manage brothels, cut their daughters' genitals, and value their sons. So you see, this is not only an ethical issue, but also a human rights issue. As humans, we have a social responsibility to at the very least be aware of the reality that is the oppression of women. It is the unfinished business of this century.
Power and control are the reasons rape happens in the first place.
At least 1 in every 3 women have been beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused in their lifetime. Domestic violence, child marriages, acid attacks, rape.
Violence against women is regrettably a global epidemic. But even in the toughest places, there are extraordinary women who are in the forefront of trying to bring about positive change.
Gender-based violence is both persistent and widespread, and ranks as top public health crisis for women in the world today. In fact, women ages 15 through 45 are more likely to be maimed or die from male violence than from cancer, malaria, traffic accidents, and war combined. In most countries, between 30 and 60% of women had experienced physical or sexual violence by a husband or boyfriend. On the rise, surprisingly, are, quote, honor killings, in which a woman's relative murders her for disgracing the family. Several governments across the globe still turn a blind eye to this violence. About 603 million women live in countries where domestic violence is not outlawed, while 2.6 billion live in countries where rape within a marriage is not considered a crime. Often it is the woman or victim who feels fear of punishment were they to report violence. Sometimes rape and sexual assault are so stigmatized that the victims stay silent even if there are laws in place. This is Zoya Najabi. She's an Afghan girl who was forced to marry at age 12 to a 16-year-old boy. She was subject to constant corporal punishment at the hand of her husband and, believe it or not, her in-laws too. Her husband regularly beat her with an electric cable until she fell unconscious, while her mother-in-law whipped the soles of her feet. A direct quote from the book Half the Sky reads as follows: "Not only my husband, but his brother, mother, and sister, they all beat me. My feet were beaten until they were like yogurt." Interestingly, during Zoya's interview, she exclaimed that she shouldn't have been beaten because she was obedient and followed her husband's orders. She said, "But if the wife is truly disobedient, then of course, her husband has to beat her." It is clear the common oppressive social customs of her culture and several others around the globe need a shift in their thinking entirely. Mukhtar Mai, a Pakistani woman, inspired me during my reading of Half the Sky. Mukhtar attended a court hearing on her brother's behalf. He had been falsely accused of having sex with a girl from a higher status clan. Her brother's punishment might be hard to hear. To punish her brother, the court sentenced her to be gang raped. 4 men dragged her from into an empty stable next door and raped her several times. Contrary to cultural norms, she went directly to the police. Her story became world news, and eventually the president of Pakistan sent her over $8,000 in compensation. Seems an awfully low price for such a disgusting violation. She took that money and invested it into a school for her village. With the help of contributions from others, she was able to expand her school, even building a second school in a nearby village. She also started her own aid group called the Mukhtar Mai Women's Welfare Organization.
Sex trafficking of girls is a business
These women, these girls, these little faces are the face of supply. 1.2 million children are trafficked every year.
They are transported, recruited, obtained.
We live in the cage. We have no notions of time, day.
This is not prostitution in the sense of a woman selling sex. This is slavery.
It is often hard to know just how many girls are being impacted by sex trafficking. It makes sense, doesn't it? How do you know which sex workers are voluntary or not? Nick and Cheryl estimate 3 million women, girls, and even some boys worldwide are currently enslaved in the sex trade. This means they are bought, held, and forced into commercial sex work against their will. Here's a better idea of just how many people are being taken advantage of due to sex slavery. Far more women and girls are shipped into brothels annually now in the 21st century than African slaves were shipped into slave plantations each year in the 18th century. It's not because girls are willing, it's all about the demand for brothels by the customer and the amount of income possible for the owner. This is not a problem in just developing countries. It exists everywhere. It's getting worse too because these girls are being bought younger and younger. They often know nothing else and are so stigmatized that they remain in the trade even with brief opportunities to free themselves. I'll never forget the story of Long Pras, a teenager who I saw in the documentary. She goes by Samana, which in Cambodia means forgiveness. Her story is one I'll never forget, and her drive is electrifying. Samana's family was poor, and a friend of her family saw this and seemed sincere and concerned. When she was 13, this family friend offered her a job. Samana went without hesitation. The woman took her to her aunt's house and said she had bought Samana. Of course, she tried to leave, finally understanding what this really was. They locked her in their basement. In a heart-wrenching discussion with other sex workers, Samana tells her story. They told me they'd give me a week to take clients. They beat me, they electrocuted me, and starved me. They made me accept clients daily, like 10, 20, 30 people. I was a child. The clients didn't use condoms. I got pregnant, then they aborted the baby. It was painful and there was a lot of blood. When I rebelled, the brothel owner gouged my eye out with a metal rod. "Can't you report them? I would have stabbed them in the back," a teen sex worker who Samana was talking to said. "They wouldn't let me go. Even bleeding, I had to take clients. And they're all drunk. No matter what, they can keep going, even if you are bleeding." Police finally found me and took me to a hospital. When I returned home to my family, they didn't want me. The other girl exclaimed, "What? They should have felt sorry for their daughter," and cried. Samana, however, is not angry. She says she will stand taller to help other girls. Because of the Somali Mom Foundation, Samana gets an education and gets to be a part of the solution. Somali Mom, pictured here, provides resources of a variety of needs to over 7,000 girls and women in Cambodia. Born to a tribal minority in Cambodia, she grew up as an orphan and lived in extreme poverty. As a young girl, she doesn't know how old she is. Somali was sold into sexual slavery by a man who posed as her grandfather. She was brutally tortured and raped on a daily basis. She even witnessed her best friend being viciously murdered. She was forced to watch as punishment. After that event, she escaped her captors and decided to build herself a new life. She vowed to never forget those whom she'd left behind, and since dedicated her heart, soul, sweat, and blood to saving victims and empowering the survivors. In 1996, she established the NGO called AFESIP. Under her leadership, they employ a holistic approach that ensures victims not only escape their plight, but also have the emotional and economic strength to face the future with hope. In 2007, the Somali Mom Foundation was established, and this funded a vehicle to support anti-trafficking organizations and to provide victims and survivors with a platform from which their voices can be heard around the world. Somali Mom is a hero and provides thousands of survivors with hope and love. She's one person, yet she's saved so many, and so many of the people that she's helped will make their life's work empowering survivors too. It is proof that women are the solution.
Somali has a center in Kampong in a rural area. She thinks the girls are more protected than they would be in a bigger city.
So first of all, I want kid to become kid again. Kid need to laughing, need to be kid back. Take makeup off, take lipstick off. And then also, they are Cambodian, they have to be nature. It's like this, so they're going fishing, they're going to find the crab, they're going to, nature, not stress. So they feel more comfortable in the village.
Because sex trafficking usually receives the attention it is easy to forget that many other ways in which women and girls are forced into lives of prostitution. Economic necessity, a lack of employment options, drug addiction, and coercion by family, pimps, or traffickers are all factors that can force women into sexual slavery. Some of the most sexually conservative societies are those that have the most disproportionately large numbers of forced prostitutes. Because having sex before marriage is typically not accepted, these men have found a solution. In India especially, prostitutes are often, quote, born into prostitution. Because of social hierarchies, certain lower-class women are literally born to sell sex. Many times, unfortunately, it is their mothers who send their daughters into the brothels because they used to sell themselves, but have gotten too old to continue taking clients. This is where the term intergenerational prostitution comes from. Her story from the book is one that stood out to me. Geeta grew up in a village in rural India and attended only 2 months of school. Like many of the girls who are trafficked, she is illiterate. Her own family abused her, but at age 11 she found refuge with her best friend's aunt. For a year, Auntie looked after Geeta with a warmth that she had never found at home. Then one day, when Geeta was 12, but still physically a little girl well short of puberty, the aunt took her to a beauty parlor. "You look a bit ugly, so why not try to look prettier?" Auntie suggested. Then the aunt locked her in a soundproof room in a brothel with an Arab man who bought her virginity. "I was very terrified to see his huge man in front of me," Geeta remembers adding. "I cried a lot and fell to his feet, pleading." After that, the brothel owner peddled Geeta daily for 5 years, and only after 8 months as a prostitute did she mature enough to get her first period. The brothel owner kept her confined in the brothel for the first 3 years, beating her with sticks and threatening her with a knife to warn what would happen if Geeta tried to escape.
A woman is entitled to not fear for her life when conceiving a child and giving birth to that child.
Every day around the world, every 90 seconds, a mother dies giving birth.
In Africa, women are dying of causes which could have been prevented. No woman should die of anemia. They should not be getting lacerations and fistula.
Risk isn't usually the first thing that many associate with pregnancy. Often it's considered a joyous experience. However, for too many women, especially in the developing world, pregnancy and childbirth can pose serious health risks. For some, it can even serve as a death sentence. The risk of dying in childbirth in sub-Saharan Africa is 1 in 22, while in the United States, it's 1 in 4,800. Some of the causes of maternal deaths are severe bleeding, infections, eclampsia, obstructed labor, and unsafe abortions. Female genital mutilation causes several of these conditions and is a practice that makes my heart ache. Most of these maternal deaths are avoidable. The solutions for preventing and treating these health problems are well known. Getting adequate care before, during, and after childbirth can mean the difference between life and death for a woman, as can understanding and dealing with some of the socioeconomic and cultural issues that can contribute to maternal deaths, such as lack of education and gender discrimination. Americans today spend on maternal health less than 1/20% of the amount we spend on our military.
What worries me about the movement against maternal mortality, which of course one fully supports, but is it sometimes fails to mention the politics of it, the degree to which women are dying because of child marriage, that fistulas are due to, in large part, to both child marriage and infibulation and FGM. It's not just lack of a doctor, it's politics. It's the control of women's bodies as nothing but the means of production.
She's an Ethiopian girl whose parents divorced when she was a small child. She was given to her father's sister. Her aunt didn't want to give her an education. She was treated as a servant. She and her sister ran away, and a neighbor told them that he could find better work. When she was 13, he sold her for $10 to a 60-year-old man as a second wife. He beat and raped her. She soon became pregnant, which meant less beatings and rape, but still not freedom. She ran away when she was 7 months along. Nobody would help her, not even her own family. She tried having her baby by herself. Her pelvis hadn't grown large enough to accommodate the baby's head, and she ended up in obstructed labor. After 7 days, she passed out, and miraculously, someone summoned a birth attendant. She woke up and discovered her baby was dead. She also had no control over her bladder or bowels. She couldn't walk or stand. The people in her village thought she was cursed. She had a fistula. Her uncle, thinking he was being considerate, gave her food and water and sent her to live alone in a hut on the outskirts of the village, where hyenas live. She was 14. She beat the hyenas with a stick as she was bedridden and could not run away. She finally knew the only way she'd live is by leaving her village, so she crawled for almost 2 days to the next village to a missionary doorstep. The missionary saved her and took her to a fistula hospital. Mahabuba's story shows us just how courageous and willed humans are. Although every personal story has a place in my heart and mind, Edna Aden is my favorite hero presented in both the book and the documentary. Edna Aden is an inspiring advocate for women and girls, and her maternity hospital in Somaliland is an oasis of healing and care for the country's women. She was raised in Somaliland in an educated and wealthy family. When she was 15, a new school opened in Somaliland. She went to work there as a student teacher and received private lessons. She was permitted to sit for exams in a room separate from the boys, and was the first Somali girl awarded a scholarship to study in Britain. She studied nursing, midwifery, and hospital management. She returned to Somaliland and became the first qualified nurse midwife in the country, and the first Somali woman to drive a car. She married Somaliland's prime minister and became the first lady. Though they divorced, she was still able to be recruited to join the World Health Organization, where she held various key positions, advocated for the abolition of harmful traditional practices like female genital mutilation, or cutting, as they say. Her lifelong dream finally came true upon her retirement from World Health Organization. She sold everything she owned, including her car, and bought a plot of land within Somaliland in a poor neighborhood. It was near those who needed her maternity hospital most. She built a hospital, and when it was complete, but without a roof, she ran out of money. With assistance from friends and other donations from local merchants and allies, Edna completed the construction of the hospital. It opened in 2002, and since then she started a new effort other than providing medical care for mothers in Somaliland. Training and dispatching 1,000 qualified midwives throughout Somaliland is her goal. Women come to her hospital, work, and learn from her, and when they're finished with their stay, they're midwives. Not only is she providing great medical care to mothers and women, but she is providing a useful education for hundreds of women who will use what they learn and help even more mothers. Surely it's the most beautiful example of ripple effect, and of course, hope.
Enacting a law against FGM, making it a criminal act, means you've got to have enough prisons to put every mother and every grandmother in jail. That's not what you want to do. So the strategy we use is education. Get the people to give it up. Not because there's a law and they're afraid of imprisonment, but because they understand it is against Islam, it's against health, it's against women, it's against childbirth. It's something that Muslim countries have done away with, if they ever existed. And you give the examples and say, okay, now we go to Mecca for our pilgrimage. We go to a holy pilgrimage to Mecca. Women in Saudi Arabia are not mutilated, are not circumcised. So this is contrary to the teachings of Islam. So we use the religious argument, the medical argument, the reproductive argument.
One of the most effective ways to fight poverty and advance poor communities is through investing in education, particularly that of girls. Schooling not only can be a precursor for women and girls to stand up to the injustices they witness, it can also help foster economic growth and stability. However, today more than 75 million primary school-age children are not in school. More than half of these children are girls, and 75% of them live in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Of all the primary school-age girls globally, 20% are not in school, compared to the 16% of boys in this age group. That's 1 in 5 eligible girls worldwide who aren't going to primary school. The situation for girls in poor communities is worse, as they are more likely than boys to be deprived of an education. There are plenty of reasons for this discrepancy, including families wanting a girl's help in the house, the cost of tuition, and the fact that girls tend to drop out of school at higher rates. When schools are far away, parents may also hesitate to allow their daughters to walk the long distance alone. But education is vital. Though it's hard to prove the impact of girls' education statistically, over and over it has been shown that this investment can have a ripple effect of opportunity that impacts generations. With education can come increased job opportunities and higher wages. Girls who pursue secondary education are also at a significantly lower risk of engaging in crime or falling victim to human trafficking. Educated women have also been shown to marry later and have fewer children. Simply building new schools is not enough. The trick is to find ways to keep teachers and students regularly attending school. One of those who embodies both the successes and the challenges of educating girls in developing countries like Vietnam is 14-year-old Nhi, who attends school in the mornings but then must sell lottery tickets for the remainder of the day to support her father and brother. As far as we can tell, she's the primary earner in the household right now, working long hours. Nick Kristof says of Nhi. Nhi, who has been helped by the program Room to Read, which has established libraries, built schools, and put millions of books into the hands of children in 10 developing countries worldwide. We can thank John Wood for this program. Putting money in the hands of women can have a positive long-term effect on the whole family, but women still suffer more from poverty than men. Women comprise 70% of the world's poorest people and own only 1% of the titled land. They suffer not only from unequal access to education and training, but also from discrimination by their employers. If greater income equality was achieved across gender lines, this could help decrease poverty through the generations. Studies have indicated that when women hold assets or gain income, the money is more likely to be spent on nutrition, medicine and housing, and consequently, their children are healthier. For every dollar a woman earns, she invests 80 cents in her family. Men, on the other hand, invest around 30 cents, and are more likely to squander money on alcohol and other vices. In order to gain access to better jobs and higher wages, women need equal opportunities for education and skilled training. Microfinance institutions are one economic resource for women, though they are an imperfect solution and have proven successful in Asia more than Africa. In Bangladesh, the Grameen Bank is a widely imitated model that provides credit to people in extreme poverty. About 94% of those taking out loans are women. The repayment rate is around 98%. Grameen claims that its loans have helped lift more than half of its borrowers out of extreme poverty. An incredible story of microfinance for women was introduced in the documentary. Kabe Sumbo, a Liberian woman who began an oil business with just 1 gallon of oil, is a perfect example of the power of 10,000 women. It changes a woman's life and betters her community. From 10,000 women, Kabe was able to receive a microfinance loan, which allowed her to grow her business through buying several tins of oil. She currently exports her palm oil to U.S. markets. Now that her business is a success, she is able to send all her children to school, owns her own home, has several warehouses, has 7 employees, and provides income for 65 people. Also introduced during the economic empowerment section of the documentary was Rebecca Lolosoli. Rebecca Lolosoli is the matriarch of the Umoja Women's Village in Kenya and an advocate for women's rights. Growing up as a member of the Samburu tribe, Lolosoli attended primary school and then nursing school, but dropped out early due to a lack of money to pay for school fees. She married at the age of 18 and then started her own business selling goods. As she learned of women who had been raped by British soldiers nearby training, she began to speak up and help them. In retaliation, neighborhood men beat her, and when her husband did not protest the beatings, she left him. Lolosoli, along with several other women who were also survivors of violence, established the Umoja Women's Village, which means unity in Swahili. To sustain themselves, they sell beadwork and open up their village as a tourist attraction. With the money they have earned, they built a school for their children and those in surrounding villages, and eventually purchased the land they live on. Because the area is prone to drought, Lolosoli and her village have worked to decrease their reliance on cattle, which often die or are stolen during such weather conditions. They now have a chicken coop, which provides both income and protein to the women and children in the village. Lolosoli has been repeatedly elected as chairperson of the village and is also chair of a local nonprofit voluntary group working to improve the lives of women and youth in Kenya. Lolosoli received the Global Leadership Award from Vital Voices in 2010. She continues to fight for a woman's right to make decisions, own land, and run a business, and she works tirelessly to end harmful and unsafe cultural practices and violence against women. She plans to run for local office and will be the first Samburu woman ever to do so. The main solution is to change the way people think. Since many attitudes are embedded in culture, they will only change with education and local leadership. Outsiders can play a role in creating change too, in part by shining a spotlight on the harmful and sexist attitudes and traditions that exist. By not speaking out, we too are helping to quietly sanction this violence against women. There is no easy solution to ending the complex issue of sex trafficking, but there are small steps you can take. With enough political will, we could begin to hold governments accountable, not only to pass laws, but also to enforce them. Officials worldwide should be under pressure to shut down jail-like brothels, investigate criminals buying underage girls, and crack down on corruption and trafficking across borders. It is high time we lead a global campaign to care for the world's mothers and mothers-to-be. We can start by demanding that our governments prioritize and provide more funding towards safe motherhood. The most cost-effective way to increase school attendance is to deworm students. For as little as 50 cents per student, deworming has been shown to increase student alertness and has reduced school absenteeism by 25% in some regions. Other simple solutions include offering small scholarships to girls who do well in school, as well as helping girls maintain their menstruation by providing sanitary pads and ensuring they have access to toilets at school. Another smart strategy for keeping girls in school is essentially bribery. A program in Mexico called Oportunidades gives poor families cash grants in exchange for keeping their children in school and taking them for regular medical checkups. According to the World Bank, it helped raise high school attendance by 10% for boys and 20% for girls. Supporting and providing aid to these kinds of innovative programs, which prove effective, is a way we can help expand the number of girls attending school worldwide. It will also help spur other successful initiatives to step up girls' education. Donor countries can also play a role in encouraging greater economic opportunities for women in poorer countries. Countries providing aid can nudge recipients to reform their laws to give more economic power to women. These laws should make it routine for a widow to inherit her husband's property, for example, and it should be made easy for women to own property and have bank accounts. By voicing your concern over women's economic empowerment, these types of policy moves can be reinforced and strengthened.
Upside, living on the downside. Hey, hey, there ain't no downside in looking up. Do you do it? Are you someone who can make a difference now? Someone who goes for broke? Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. It's in what you give, it comes out what you make. Don't you lose that human heart. Don't you lose that human heart. Love is all I have to give you. Life is all I have to live. Do I look that unfamiliar? Do I look that different? Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. It's in what you give, it comes out what you make. Don't you lose that human heart. Don't you lose that human heart. See myself in your eyes. Can you see yourself in mine? Are you looking for a friend now? Are you looking for a sign? Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. It's in what you give, it comes out what you make. Don't lose hope. 'cause in what you give, it comes out what you make. Don't you lose that human heart. Don't you lose that human. Don't you lose that human heart. Don't you lose that human heart. Mind control, conspiracy, stare too hard at that TV. They get you so scared you don't want to face the truth. All them rules were made to be broke. The same punchline and the same bad joke. It's really kind of funny if you laugh about it. It's really kind of funny if you laugh. Come on, I'm just happy to be in love with life, to live my life with hope. Anyone can, because anything goes. Oh yeah, I'm just happy to be part of the show. And baby, don't